Hi people and hello my Chili Con Carnage crew, it is Chili here for an episode of Live Listen Erased, and this time it's going to be a special theme episode because I have Uncle Steve with me. Uncle Steve, how are you today?
Doing good over here. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic and I can't wait for this special episode. For those unaware, Uncle Steve has his own podcast, the Iron Maiden Zone. Obviously we're going to be doing an episode on Iron Maiden then. So we have a special roulette wheel for Live Listen Erased, all the albums that Iron Maiden has, and that's going to be the one that chooses their selection rather than, I guess, us making a list back and forth. So, right. Uncle Steve, I've given you a brief rundown just before the episode, but I want to give everyone out there who is watching this a rundown on how the episode works. So sure. Live Listen Erased is basically, you get three choices from albums, alright? You get to erase one forever, you get to listen to one forever, but you're never going to see them perform live. And then the last choice, of course, is live, where you see this album in its entirety live, but you can never ever hear it after. Some tough decisions to be made, especially when it comes to, well, Iron Maiden, a band with plenty of wealth in regards to music, wouldn't you say, Uncle Steve?
Absolutely, definitely.
So, I know you can't see my screen, and you'll probably be watching this afterwards going, oh wow, look at this wheel. But I've got this lovely screen, I've got this lovely wheel that should be up on screen now in post-production, full of Iron Maiden's albums. And I reckon we just launch into this one, Steve. What do you reckon? We just jump in, both feet, into the water, and find out what three albums are going to be, well, the ones that we have to pick from, eh?
Absolutely, let's go.
Let's do this. Let's dive in for the first selection. Here we go. Click. The wheel is spinning. We have a choice for it is Fear of the Dark is the first one.
Okay.
That's going to be an interesting choice for many reasons, I would imagine. The second choice we have coming up here as it wheel spins again. Welcome to Live Listen Erased, the Roulette Edition. Oh, it might be Brave. Yes, it looks like Brave New World. Yes, Brave New World is the second one.
Okay.
Making sure we got that one there. And for the last one for this list here. Alright, here we go.
Here we go.
Third one. Make it a good one. Oh, it's Somewhere in Time.
Oh.
Okay, this is an odd one. I mean, I was thinking about this episode when we were talking about, coming up with this one and how it could work best. If we gave a list to each other, then obviously we would have had time to think about these lists, and it kind of takes a little bit of the fun away from this. But with a random one in particular, well, it's a little bit different, isn't it?
It makes it a little more spontaneous to have to actually do this.
To have to pick some of these ones here. And if people were going to pick three albums, I can see these three in particular not being the choices that they might pick.
Yeah. I mean, each of these albums definitely has their qualities.
Yeah. I mean, each of these albums are each from a decade as well, so that's another one as well, the way up. So, yes.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, Somewhere in Time, 80s, Fear of the Dark, 90s, and Brave New World, just on the cusp of 2000s when, Bruce rejoins the band and such. So, I guess that's one way to think about it as well. Look, Steve, you are the resident Iron Maiden fan here, and of course the guest to our show. Which album would you like to discuss first?
Let's go Somewhere in Time. Let's do them in chronological order, maybe.
Yeah, okay, I like the thought of that one. Somewhere in Time, then. What are we going on with this one here? It's I know you covered this as well in regards to... Actually, I should probably note as well, Somewhere in Time is how we first got in contact with each other.
Right.
It was through the song, I think it was The Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner? No, It was one of the songs on there.
Maybe Sea of Madness.
I think it might have been Sea of Madness. Is that the one that's talking about the
Oh no, I'm sorry. It was Stranger in a Strange Land. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
was it
yeah,
Stranger in a Strange Land? Yes, that's right, because it was talking about the North, what do you call it? The North Crossing, the
yeah.
ships.
The straight trying to find the the
Yeah.
passageway. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's almost like fate has chosen somewhere in time for a reason for our episode. You covered that in a very, very in-depth detail for your channel as well. I must point out to the viewers out there, talking about the whole story, not just about the music, but I guess the whole story behind that song as well. And
right.
you kind of gave me, I want to say this straight up front, right? You gave me a new aspect in regards to Somewhere in Time, an album that I probably wouldn't have ranked too high back in the day as well.
Okay.
I've got to say that straight. It's yeah. I went back and listened to it because I know we talked about it, and I went back to it. And I'm like, there's actually some tunes here that are pretty damn good. This is an album I always overlooked. I guess going back over their history.
Sure.
So for me, anyway, this is certainly an underrated album. What about you, Steve? How do you, I guess, feel in regards to Somewhere in Time?
Somewhere in Time was the first Iron Maiden album, brand new, that I ever had, like when it came out. I became a fan, probably when I became a fan, Live After Death was the current album. And so Somewhere in Time, I got Live After Death, I was becoming a fan, and when Somewhere in Time came out, probably wasn't too far after that, and I got into that, and so that was the first thing I played and thought, oh wow, this is Iron Maiden.
Mm.
And I think it's a really solid album. I mean, and they're doing the tour right now where they are playing. I think right now they're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, or like 5 songs from the album.
Wow. Okay, that's a fair chunk of the album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of those songs is Alexander the Great. That's a song they haven't played. They never played it on the Somewhere in Time tour in 1986, 87. So they brought it out, 40 years later. That's amazing. But yeah, but this album, it was a change in style because they started using guitar synths as well, which threw a lot of fans off, people that came in at the beginning and followed along through everything else they had done. So it's kind of a divisive album in a way. To me, I would say if I was ranking all their albums, it would definitely rank in the top 10.
Okay, yeah. So it's like a mid-tier album, I guess, looking over the things, going over their catalog for you.
Probably, yeah. It's somewhere. It's probably a little closer to the top than the bottom, but it's not like way at the top either. So
yeah, okay, that's seems fair, all things considered. But it's an interesting one that you, like you said, you got into. Oh, sorry, it's the first album that you got by Iron Maiden. That was the new one that came out around the time you're getting into the band as well.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
And it is a bit of a controversial one, like you're saying. This one and the next one as well, I guess, bringing in the synths and all the jazz that came with that. They're trying something different on here, I guess. Mm-hmm. And whether or not that worked is up for the listener to decide. But there were certainly some tracks here that definitely did well. And I remember, like we were saying before, Stranger in a Strange Land, certainly a track that I did enjoy. Wasted Years wasn't too bad, I thought. It's a good track. I know a lot of people talk about Alexander the Great, like it's this amazing song that no one really listens to, but I don't rate it. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, that one. I mean, for years I thought it was one of the most amazing ones, and fans have always clamored to hear it live because it never got played live, and it's this long epic. But a lot of people also will say there's different factions of people. Some absolutely adore it, and then others are like, well, it just sounds like Steve Harris opened up a history book, and wrote down, and copied a few lines out of the book for his lyrics. I think like Alexander the Great, musically, it's an awesome song. It's got a lot of the Iron Maiden dual lead solos, and it's just a long. It came after
Power Slave, wasn't it?
Power Slave.
Yeah.
So you had Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which was this big long epic. So then Steve Harris kind of was like, "Hey, let's do another." And it was like the third album in a row. So now let's keep that thing going. And there was a section in the middle where the song kind of stops down, and it's and some people felt like it was a little bit of overkill. Like, okay, it's got real formulaic.
Yeah. Okay.
On that one in particular, so there's a famous quote out there that Blackie Lawless had said. They were touring with Iron Maiden on that tour, and he said that their current album and Iron Maiden's current album, which was Somewhere in Time, he said those were tired albums by tired bands. And they had just gotten off the Power Slave tour, they had a little time off, then they go right back into this. So there's something to it, but in my opinion, if it's a tired album by a tired band, it's a damn good tired album.
Yeah, there certainly could be worse records that you could write as a tired band, and there have certainly been a lot more worse albums. When bands have been extremely tired to record. So, yeah, Somewhere in Time, it does seem to hit some of the notes some of the times, but there is like a fair bit of filler as well. I felt. Obviously, I've covered Alexander the Great there before. I'm just trying to recall. It's been a little while since I've played this album, but I can't remember Deja Vu too well.
Deja Vu has a Dave Murray write. He gets a co-write about every couple of albums, and so it starts off with a real nice musical guitar playing section, and my co-host Matt, he always says it's Murray magic whenever Dave Murray writes something. and you can tell when you hear one of his songs, it's just there's something, a little nice guitar lead thing at the beginning of a song or something that just kind of is like, hey, it's like Dave's writing on the wall. Dave was here.
Dave was here, man.
Yeah.
Kilroy was here. Yep, Dave was here.
Right.
Well, that's true. I distinctly remember the first half enjoying it a lot better than the second half as well. I was listening to this. Actually, I was listening to this while walking. I had a long walk, and I was blaring this record, and yeah, the first half really caught me in a better mood, I suppose you could say. Caught Somewhere in Time, pretty good open,
yeah,
pretty okay opener for that one. Sea of Madness was intriguing. I think Heaven Can Wait caught me by surprise as well.
Okay.
I have a funny feeling that rings like one of the songs that just like, oh, that wasn't too bad. That was a bit more, solid than I thought. But I guess like you were just saying before about it being a tired album, yeah, you can hear that to a minor degree. I would feel that's more true on the follow-up album, but I'm guessing that'll piss off a lot of people there.
I was kind of hoping we were going to actually get No Prayer for the Dying on this one, but
well, how I mentioned, okay, you're going to hate this. You know how I said I accidentally pressed the wheel before we started recording? It landed on No Prayer for the Dying.
So No Prayer wasn't a... So that should have been...
I know. I'm like, I pressed... Yeah, for those who are just watching now, I had the screen prepared, everything ready for this episode, and then I pressed the roulette button by accident, and it landed on No Prayer for the Dying. I'm like, oh, why?
I would have loved to have talked some No Prayer.
I think we both would have loved to have talked about No Prayer.
Yeah. For opposite reasons, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, very true, very true. I think we're pretty much all in line here, though, when it comes to Somewhere in Time. It's a decent effort. What about the album artwork, actually? We haven't discussed that about it. What do you feel about the album artwork, I guess, compared to some of their other stuff?
This album artwork, if you're the kind of fan... This is obviously when Derek Riggs was their artist. He was their artist basically from the first album all the way through. Let's see here. He did No Prayer. He did not do Fear of the Dark. So he did everything up until No Prayer. And my personal opinion is, if you like stuff that has Easter eggs, there are so many Easter eggs on this album cover. It's not funny. I mean, I'll tell you what I like about this album cover, how much I like it. I have a poster of it right behind me on the wall.
Yep.
With every bit. I mean, there's there's things that lean towards so many different songs. Like I'm looking at it right here, and
It's got the
there's a
acacia
picture of it.
sign in the corner.
Yeah, there's Acacia. If you look below that, there's Eddie
Eddie
from the
Love.
first Iron Maiden.
Mm.
If you go way, way over to, let's see, where's he at? If you go about in the middle and look up, you see Icarus falling from the sky. Um, you've got,
Oh yeah.
if you look across, if you look at Dave Murray on the bottom and look over his head,
That.
it says Ancient Mariner Seafood Restaurant.
Oh, my resolution isn't that good.
If you look to the left, I'll just tell you a couple of things here. If you
Sure.
look just a little bit to the left of that, the clock is at 23:58, which would be
Yeah.
2 minutes to midnight.
Yep.
If you go above that, if you're a football fan, and you know Steve's a big West Ham United fan,
Mm.
and Arsenal is obviously their big rival, it says West Ham 7, Arsenal
No.
3.
Huh?
Yeah, there's the Rainbow because they recorded a Live at the Rainbow with Paul Di'Anno. There's
Oh, okay.
there's an Aces High Bar. I mean, there's stuff all over the place, and I love it because like right now I'm looking at it and I'm trying to find new things, and you're always.
It's definitely got a lot going on in this album artwork, and I guess compared to the classics, it was certainly one that I again overlooked. It's a loud thing, and when you're looking at it from a phone as well, it's this tiny little thing that you can't see the detail, but obviously when you're looking at a poster you can.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of points that you were making just then that there's certainly a lot of Easter eggs in there. I have a funny feeling, maybe someone correct me here, but I mentioned obviously Kilroy was here earlier. I have a funny feeling Kilroy might have even been written into the album cover.
I think that might have been on Power Slave.
Was it Power Slave?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I could be wrong because I'm not an expert. But
someone's going to say it. Like, probably on the back album cover.
I think it was on Power Slave, though.
Yeah, okay. But still, like, it's a pretty solid entry as far as the artwork goes. Look, there's definitely a lot worse out there, isn't there, when it comes to Iron Maiden's artwork?
Oh, God. I mean, if I was ranking their artwork, though, I mean, to me, this is... Like, Killers is amazing. Number of the Beast is amazing. This is way better than Peace of Mind.
Yeah.
I think it's on par with Power Slave, but some people feel like it's a little too much. There's too much going on.
Yeah.
But if you just subtract everything, Eddie looks awesome. Eddie still looks awesome on this one.
Oh, yeah. Eddie still looks good. Obviously, there's a lot going on with that one. It's not as iconic, I guess, as Power Slave, but it's still a very good entry. Yeah, if you're ranking this by artwork alone, then Somewhere in Time certainly goes up there, that's for sure. But we're not here for ranking the artwork, are we? No.
I don't think so.
No, look, it could be a factor you might decide.
You'd have to change your podcast. It'd have to be like something, look, and erase.
Scratch,
draw,
sniff, and,
look, erase.
Scratch, sniff, and smell, or something.
Right.
God, if you could smell that album. I think it was also inspired by Blade Runner, wasn't it? The artwork. It feels like it was.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that involved as well.
Yeah, somehow I recall that in a discussion, possibly some time ago. But yeah, okay. So Somewhere in Time, intriguing. I guess the next one up we got though is Fear of the Dark.
Fear of the Dark.
Yeah, this is as far as like controversial picks for, I guess, each decade goes. They certainly can be controversial in certain people's eyes. I feel like these records, Somewhere in Time and Fear of the Dark in particular, can be a mixed bag as far as how people would view them. And I certainly have my views on Fear of the Dark. To be honest, I think I might have covered this with you earlier. I don't know, but I've always been under the assumption you take away the last track, Fear of the Dark, the title track, of course. It's a very forgettable album, a very overrated album, one that is carried by the title track.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you.
I know there's people that just defend it, and love the, I'll Be Quick or Be Dead. Yeah, sure. From Here to Eternity, that's okay. And Afraid to Shoot Strangers as well, but they're very blasé. They're not incredible songs. Like
Yeah.
of that era of Iron Maiden's history, and ones that, like, if I'm going to play any track from Fear of the Dark, it's going to be Fear of the Dark and nothing else. I don't think I'm going back to Wasting Love. Which
I have a favorite song on this album, but personally, I would say, from Here to Eternity, Weekend Warrior, Apparition, Chains of Misery, The Fugitive, Fear is the Key, even. It's all songs that would be every one of those songs would be the worst song on just about every other Iron Maiden album. But because they're on this album, five of them aren't even the worst song. I personally think this is, as far as Bruce Dickinson Iron Maiden goes, this is 100% the worst album they've ever made.
Wow.
Because when you add Bruce Dickinson, like a lot of people, I know there's a lot of people that don't like Blaze Bayley. So Blaze Bayley, those albums become the scapegoat because they don't like Blaze Bayley. But I'm like, look, the definitive voice of Iron Maiden is Bruce. So when you add Bruce to the discussion, it raises your level of expectation.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's got to be a reason behind the fact that, you want to talk about a tired album by a tired band. How about a lost album by a lost band? Because they were just like I've heard someone say they were throwing everything at the wall just to see what would stick.
Fuck.
They were out of ideas, and the music scene had changed up because 92 you got Dirt by Alice in Chains came out that year, which, the year before that, Nirvana had, hit. Of course, Alice in Chains was even a few years before that, but the landscape of music had changed a lot already.
That's very true.
And this is there are songs that I like. Like, personally, my favorite song on the album is a little bit of Murray Magic, as Matt would say. Judas Be My Guide is my favorite song on this album.
That's what I've heard from a lot of people as well. It seems to be like the underrated song from this record.
Yeah.
Everyone just goes to Fear of the Dark, and that's it. They'll mention the first couple of ones.
They defend it because of Fear of the Dark. You take that song off, they don't even, when they think of Fear of the Dark album, all they think of is Fear of the Dark song. That's why they defend it.
If this track
it's been in the live set ever since
it came out, yeah. If this album was 11 tracks, it would be a very different beast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
the number 2 of the beast.
Eddie's trying to control something different. That'll be the album artwork instead.
It'd be a picture of him sitting on a toilet.
It'd be like the B-sides album they wrote, where he's got a bare ass, but it's a skid mark out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I think people are going to be jumping to conclusion at this point, like, you're going to erase this. Well, you have to find out. You have to stick around and find out whether or not we erase this one. And there's going to be a lot of people defending this one. I guarantee it, man. I guarantee a lot of people. A lot of people, a lot of Iron Maiden fans like to give their views on this album in particular. I don't know, because like I did a ranking, and I got a bit of backlash in regards to Fear of the Dark and a few others, but look, everyone's entitled to their opinions. Of course.
Yeah. Now, I'll say this. As far as an album opener, because they generally use their album opener as their concert opener.
Yes. Okay.
Be Quick or Be Dead is like a kick-ass way to open a show. I mean, because it opens and it's ferocious. I mean, it's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, and they're running on stage, and I mean, it's so much energy.
Yes, that's true, and I can't fault them for Be Quick or Be Dead. It certainly is a decent track as far as this goes. Like, Yeah, Fear of the Dark, the tour would have been an interesting one because, like they always say, when the band plays new tracks, that's when you go to the bathroom, right? So how many times would you go to the bathroom when Fear of the Dark tour was going on?
Let's see. They played, because I did attend that tour.
Ah.
Yeah, and they played, let's see, if I recall, it was Be Quick or Be Dead,
Yep.
From Here to Eternity.
Okay.
Afraid to Shoot Strangers.
Oof. Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm pretty sure they played Wasting Love.
Ooh, maybe, yeah.
And I believe the only other song was Fear of the Dark.
Okay. So disregarding the first song, you'd have 1, 2, what's that, 3, and 4 piss
That was
breaks.
5. That was 5 songs.
Like, okay, time to get beer. They're playing From Here to Eternity.
Yeah, exactly. From Here to Eternity. That I've probably went out of my way to say plenty of these songs are the worst, but you listen to that song, lyrically, it's this over-sexualized thing that's it's not it's garbage. Iron Maiden. It's the worst. It's some of the. It might be the worst lyrics Steve Harris has ever written. Like, you listen to that song and you go, "This is the same guy who wrote Hallowed Be Thy Name."
Yeah, it's always disappointing when it comes to that kind of point. Yeah, I never thought about that. I never considered
Like, think about
that.
this. I'm waiting in my cold cell when the bell begins to chime, reflecting on my past life, and it doesn't have much time.
Mm-hmm.
Or she fell in love with this greasy machine. She leaned over, wiped his kickstart clean. She'd never seen the beast before, but she left there wanting more, more, more. I mean, it's just poetic, isn't it?
Yeah, I got that tattooed on my chest.
Yeah. I got it tattooed on my ass. I don't want anyone to see it.
That's a good. Oh yeah, that's the. Oh god, if anyone has that tattooed on them, I want them to comment below because
We want to see it.
yeah, pics or it didn't happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Reach out to me on Instagram. I'll make sure it
my
gets
God.
put up on that.
If someone has a picture of that, you got to question your life choices.
It's the type of person who's got the tattoo that's like no regrets, like a typo.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, far out. That's I never considered the lyrics of it. Oh my god, that's so bad.
It's trash.
It's terrible. I wonder if anything like Tattooed Millionaire had anything to do with it. Because they were kind of like splintering almost at that point. Tattooed Millionaire came out 2 years prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was, like I said, I feel like part of this, because Fear of the Dark's a good song. And
yeah.
I feel like when I hear Fear of the Dark, that's the epic song on the album, obviously, and that's the song that kind of sounds like, it could have fit on another Iron Maiden album. And these other songs, it was like what people say. They're throwing stuff to the wall and like going, they kind of had lost their identity, really.
Yes. I think you're right. And probably it didn't help from the album that came out before No Prayer, right? And obviously the change in the music scene as well. They're probably having like a bit of a crisis identity here. And just
Sure.
Like, screw it.
A lot of factors.
We got to do something here. And our previous efforts didn't work. And they're probably in a bit of a drastic scenario as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it doesn't create for a good thing. It doesn't create for good times in the studios. Tensions might be running high, and all of a sudden you're considered yesteryear's band or whatever, and you don't know what the future holds. So, yeah, it would have been very stressful times to go through with the band. But, yeah, look, sure. I mean, we got a great song with Fear of the Dark, and we are not taking that away from the record. Of course, amazing song. Thankfully it did come out. I will actually say about Afraid to Shoot Strangers, the intro part, like the first half anyway, the first half section, it just seems to be drawn out like a lot longer than how it feels. But when it hooks in, that's a great second half of the song. It's like Afraid to Shoot Strangers, dun, 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 and it just kind of
once it gets its hooks in you,
Yeah, but once it just like the tempo shift change and you're like, oh snap, okay, that was worth the first 3 minutes of entry, So yeah, look, there's certainly aspects of Fear of the Dark that are decent, and we certainly can't take away Fear of the Dark. But what we're obviously pointing out is you take away that track, how much of this album are you really going to love? Because, yeah, a lot of people do defend Fear of the Dark. And that's...
Yeah, I would make this about a... I mean, honestly, this should have been an EP.
Yeah, okay, yeah, like you take the first three... Oh, maybe not the first three tracks. You take, like, Be Quick or Be Dead, Judas Be My Guide, and... I don't know, one of the other ones you could say, I guess, and Fear of the Dark, and make it an EP, like a 4-track EP. Is that what you're saying?
If it was me and I was making this an EP, I would take Fear of the Dark, Judas Be My Guide, Childhood's End.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess Be Quick or Be Dead. I'm not the biggest fan of that song. It's decent. Afraid to Shoot Straight. I like, they're... I mean, if you're comparing them to some of the other stuff on this album, then obviously, yeah. I'd say Be Quick or Be Dead, Afraid to Shoot Strangers, Childhood's End, Judas Be My Guide, and Fear of the Dark. 5-song EP.
Yeah, that's a solid EP as well.
It's pretty solid for an EP. And then so what that means though is there's 7 other songs that I wouldn't mind leaving off. Of a 12-song album.
Yeah, that's something to consider though. Like, you're willing to cut the other 7 off in an EP. So that's telling you a lot about Fear of the Dark and I guess the music on offer. I think that's quite one of those moments, you're kind of like scratching your head about it, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
I will add this. At the time, it didn't seem so bad because, when you're a fan of a band and they're modern, they're current, they're doing whatever. They put out a new album, you buy it, and you listen to it, and you're just like, I'm pretty passive. Like, I don't really notice a lot of times, like a lot of the details. So I would listen to it. I don't remember hating it back then. But I know as time went on, it wasn't one of those albums where I was like, oh man, I gotta listen to Chains of Misery.
Yeah. I'm adding this to my CD collection. Sorry.
Misery's actually a good word for this album.
Yeah. Record of Misery.
Yeah, exactly. You'll feel like the fugitive when you listen to this one.
Yeah.
You're trying to run away from it.
Yeah. Judas, more like Maiden, Be My Guide.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Something happened and we don't know what, but it happened. We can't change history, people. I'm just saying.
Hey, I've done a lot of talk about this album on my podcast, and I've taken some flack for it. You know, there are the defenders of the album out there, which is, and different strokes for different folks, because I mean we all have different set of ears, and so
correct, yes. But look, I mean, maybe someone grew up listening to this, and it's much more deeply rooted within them. Might have been their impressionable years, or maybe they just like the music in general.
I'll say, to quote Bruce Dickinson, to quote a line from the song "Sacred Cowboys" on Bruce Dickinson's "Balls to Picasso" album, that fits this album very well.
Okay.
You can sell people crap and make them eat it. Maybe you can sell people crap and make them hear it. So.
Oh god, it's like cry laughter just then,
I mean, I'm sure my choice is pretty obvious. I mean,
what? No way. I don't think so.
Well, who knows? Maybe Brave New World would be the one I erase. We'll see.
We'll have to see. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Brave New World as well, the last one on the list here. And,
absolutely.
Oh, what an album to, I guess, come back from. Blaze Bayley has released 2 records with the band, and Bruce Dickinson's done his solo stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, by some stroke of magic, the band just come back together for Brave New World. And I know a lot of people who were not Iron Maiden fans getting into Iron Maiden through Brave New World.
I can see that.
Yeah, and it's like the band's signing off on a new era, isn't it? Because, like obviously there was the 80s era, there's the 90s confusion, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, Iron Maiden's back. It's Iron Maiden 2.0 or something. We're coming back, and we've got a different type of sound that we're bringing. We're not bringing this fast aggression, not necessarily for every single track, but we're trying out this different thing. And there is a lot of stuff going here. I clearly remember a friend of mine who was really not into metal, like hip hop, head, all that stuff like that, and much younger than me as well. And he came up. We were talking one day, about random stuff, and and they had a drum kit at their place. So anyway, we were just playing on the drums a bit, and then he starts playing along the thing, and I'm like, I recognise that tune, and I'm like, what was that? He goes, oh, Goes to the Navigator by Iron Maiden. And I'm like, oh my god, it was too. Why are you playing that? He's like, oh, haven't you heard of Iron Maiden? I'm like, yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just one of those like dumbstruck moments. This person I never would have expected to be listening to metal got into Iron Maiden because of, I don't know, I think probably from the drum kit, but Ghost of the Navigator in particular, just playing the drums along to that one. And yeah, like there's this odd little connection, I guess, in regards to Brave New World, which, to be honest, if I'm going to look over the later generation of Iron Maiden, I didn't get into Brave New World until a little bit later on.
Yeah,
I got into them through Dance of Death.
Okay.
Yeah, which I know probably a lot of people will groan about, but I got into like the new era of Maiden through Dance of Death, and I don't know, around about that time I started listening to, I think, Brave New World, which I know people hold up in a high regard. There's a lot of love for it. Do you reckon though the love just is because Bruce is back?
Well, if you go back into the and I know your feelings about Seventh Son are different than a lot of people's. I know there are people that don't like that album, but a lot of people regard that as either one of the best or the best. A lot of people, and so they went from that to, hey, we want to go back to our old, kind of what do they call it? They're more of just a stripped down rock like Killers. So when because they got a little bit of negative feedback on Seventh Son because of the guitars, and more synths and things like that, which as a fan back then I didn't mind. But they went to No Prayer, which
is the complete opposite of Seventh Son.
Yeah, but it was more of a stripped down sound, and it took away a lot of the synths and things like that. And of course, the change in direction led to Adrian Smith being out of the band. So a lot of people don't like No Prayer. I'm not one of those people, but a lot of people think that was a step in the opposite direction, which it was, because Seventh Son, it's following an album like Seventh Son, which a lot of people find amazing. Again, it's difficult. You take a mate like it's like Metallica trying to follow up Master of Puppets. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's you have to try, and so No Prayer happens. Yeah, kind of step in the wrong direction for them. Downhill. Fear of the Dark. I mean, they fell down the elevator shaft, and then Bruce is gone.
Yeah, now, that's right. The lead is gone.
I'm going to hire somebody that doesn't sound like Bruce Dickinson, because this is my theory that I've come up with.
Okay, I'm here.
Because Steve is like, there's no way in hell I'm hiring someone that sounds like Bruce, because if I hire someone that sounds like Bruce is going to be over there going, oh, well, of course he had to hire someone that sounds just like me, and I'm not going to let that happen. I think that's a big reason why they chose Blaze, because he was nothing like Bruce. And Steve is also Steve. He is not a trend follower. He's going to do what he wants.
Doing Steve things.
Yeah. So I think that's why they got Blaze. Then they do the 2 albums with Blaze. Some people, a lot of people struggled with that because he's so different. I like Blaze. Personally, I think Blaze is better solo than he was in Maiden, because...
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So they do the 2 albums with Blaze. Everyone's like, okay, all of the 90s albums are garbage, which I disagree with, but a lot of people feel that way. A lot of the classic era from, the first album through like Seventh Son.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, Bruce and Adrian come back. 2 of their main songwriters, which you lose. If you have 3 great songwriters and 2 of them disappear, it's really hard for one to pick up all the slack.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, Yannick was a good songwriter, and Blaze wasn't a bad songwriter, but Steve was the main songwriter.
Yes.
So when Bruce came back, of course, he's the voice of Iron Maiden.
Hmm.
I like Iron Maiden from start to finish. I mean, there's stuff I don't like about any different things, but Bruce is the voice of Iron Maiden. No matter how much I like Blaze or Paul, Bruce is the voice of
Yeah.
Iron Maiden. So
There's no denying
when
that. I mean, look,
yeah when
of course.
yeah Bruce comes back, I mean, people are like all excited about it now, right? Adrian's back. A lot of people are excited about Adrian coming back, but what really is going to tell you about it is it doesn't matter if Bruce comes back and it's an album of shite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
songs on this album stand up. I mean, I think Iron Maiden has about, let's see here, maybe 3 albums that are about perfect
Oh, okay. Looking over at it as a whole. Yeah.
as a whole, and this is one of them.
Ooh.
Yeah, this album, start to finish, and I will say it took time for me to get some of these songs. When I first heard them, I was like, oh yuck, I don't like that at all. But as you know, through the years, you have the album music is like a living thing. It just
Yeah.
it keeps breathing, and it takes, your opinions change. And this album, I I will say, if I was ranking Iron Maiden albums, this album's in my top 2.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big call. I think,
And
look, you're definitely right as far as like, music is organic and it always changes. And that's
yeah,
why I wanted to go back one day to my Iron Maiden ranking list, because Iron Maiden in particular seemed to be one of the most bands with the most volatile movements as far as their
hmm
albums
yeah,
and my feelings on them. Because Brave New World, when I first heard it, it has this amazing opener with the Wicker Man and Goes to the Navigator and Brave New World. Great tracks, fantastic openers, right?
hmm
Blood Brothers was another wicked song as well.
yeah, yeah.
Like obviously the intro is going to be the biggest kick because that's the first song everyone's listening to.
Sure.
And obviously the next couple of tracks are going to be the ones that draw you in. And like those first 3 or 4, amazing, just purely amazing songs. And I don't know why, but I think it's like after that it just took a little while to warm up.
hmm
I obviously had come from that, the Dance of Death, which I thought was, it's got a lot of amazing parts in its own right, and it's fine. It's very good. A lot of people hate it, obviously for various reasons, particularly about its album cover, because we can't
That's
defend.
one thing. Yeah.
We can't defend the album cover. Even the unedited version or whatever the original version was, I don't rate it. But look,
Sure.
whatever happened. It's
Right.
again, and I guess coming from listening to that album on repeat and then going back to check on Brave New World eventually, it's pretty different. Like, even though it's both in the same new era, released only a few years after, they're almost different beasts. There is common elements. But
I have a theory on that too.
what do you reckon on that? Because I'm just thinking about this out loud now, right? So why do you think there's quite a bit of difference here between these two records?
When they talk about bands that start out, right, there's a saying about a band doing their first album. They'll say they had their whole life to write their first album, right? But then they
Yeah.
always talk about the sophomore slump, where they'll say a band either elevates or digresses on their second album, because now, okay, well, your first, of course, you go back to the 80s or whatever, and a band like Maiden was putting out an album a year, but they put out, they have their whole life to write the first album. Then when it comes to the second album, okay, you tour for, say, 6 months. Now you get off the road, you're off the road for a month. Okay, you need to start writing for the next album. You're going to be recording in 3 months. So now you
Yeah.
got 3 months to write a second album, as opposed to years to get that stuff together for the first one. So I feel like on this album, and let's see, half of the songs on this album were written by Blaze Bayley with Steve Harris. Now, Blaze got bought out because he was going to no longer be in the band. and half of the album was that.
Sorry, Brave New World. Half the album was written by
Yes.
Blaze.
Well, he was writing some of the
Aspects.
songs. I could be wrong on half, but I
Yeah.
know for a fact, like Blood Brothers, I know for a fact that's one of the songs he was working on with Steve.
Wow.
Yeah, and they just bought him out. They were just like, because they don't put songwriters on their albums that aren't in the band. Other than there's only been one, and it was Hooks in You. Unless it was a cover, they might have had a cover on one album, but I don't know. I don't actually didn't. Hooks in You has a co-write by a guy who's not in the band.
Okay.
You know who the guy was?
Oh, Hooks in You.
It's kind of a trick question. The guy who wasn't in the band that co-wrote Hooks in You was Adrian Smith. So like he had been in the band for the last 8 or 10 years, but Blaze was writing this album. Like half of the songs on Blaze's first solo album, Silicon Messiah, he was writing for this album.
Yeah.
So, but then you take in the fact that Bruce came back in, and Bruce had been doing his own solo thing. Adrian had been with him, but everyone's coming into this album all guns blazing, right?
Right.
They put everything they got into this album because they're like, this album has to be amazing. We're coming back. We can't put out a clunker. We can't put out another Fear of the Dark here, guys. But then they get to the Dance of Death, and now that's the first time they're actually going, okay, now we're writing an album as a 6-man band from scratch.
Yeah.
Like all their other stuff had been expended. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They used up all
That's
their
why I think
previous
it's so
ideas.
different.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so different.
Yeah, that would explain a fair bit. I mean, like, obviously Blaze Bayley released his album just recently, which it's very good. And
I love it.
Yeah, I guess when his album came out, I'm like, oh, Blaze Bayley wrote an album. Oh, okay, I'll just check into him. And the guy's he's released like 10 or 12 albums. He's released a lot of albums, and
he has. Yeah.
In preparation for that record, I went back and listened to, I think it was Silicon Messiah.
Yeah.
Which also has, from memory, I might be wrong here, but it also has a track by the same name as another Iron Maiden track. I think it was Speed of Light.
I don't think that's on Silicon Messiah.
It might be.
I could be wrong.
It might be on. It's either Silicon Messiah or an album after that. But
he does have a song called Speed of Light, though. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, it's around 2002, 2003, I think, the album. Anyway, but yeah, he has a track which I thought was just a weird.
Yeah,
tidbit.
It's on 10th Dimension.
There we go, 10th Dimension. Yes. So I thought, going back and have a look at it, Speed of Light, and I'm going, huh, hang on, that's an Iron Maiden song. So I had to listen to it. Of course, it's not.
Sure.
But it's just this weird connection, and you're looking at Silicon onwards for him, and he's written really good tunes. Obviously, he gets the bum rap for Iron Maiden because of those 2 records, and unfairly so, I reckon. But there's a lot of gears and motions in regards to the X Factor and Virtual 11 and Blaze in the band.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he wasn't able to reach his full potential and might have been slightly limited. And, especially with the first record. Like, he managed to achieve a fair bit with the first record. It is a dark record. It is a very different record compared to what Iron Maiden fans would have been used to. And they try out a lot of things that just they would never have tried out before. What is it? They got the track towards the end there. I'm just trying to think of it. It's, what is it? Blood on the World's Hands, I think, the one with the solo at the front of it.
Everything had music in front of it, so
yeah, no, the one with like Steve Harris doing his bass solo at the beginning of it. I'm pretty sure it was Blood on the World's Hands.
Oh yeah.
It's great. Steve is a great bass player, but even that style of bass, you kind of going, well, I just didn't expect that from Steve, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's interesting. It's certainly a cool record, but
yeah, it's very different.
I know that someone said to me, because I've ranked Virtual 11 pretty high, and someone said to me, okay, The Angel and the Gambler, I can't stress how shit that song is, but still, like, how many times can you say the one lyric? But someone told me, they messaged and they're like, oh yeah, he's out of tune the entire album, and I went back listening to it with that in mind, and I can't unhear it. And look, maybe I'm just tone deaf. Maybe that comment got to my head,
Yeah, sure.
But if, let's say, right, a couple of these tracks from Brave New World were written by Blaze Bayley, then, and especially Blood Brothers, which is a track that I really love, then that's interesting to think what could have been, I guess. You know, it sounds like he was coming into his own if he was writing
I feel
Blood
like,
Brothers.
yeah, I definitely feel like that. I like Blaze a lot, and I'm so look. I'm very happy that Bruce and Adrian came back because Iron Maiden. Those are two things that don't really exist well without the other. Steve Harris and Bruce Dickinson. They are better as a team than they are. Now, I'll say this: I think without the other, Bruce did better musically than Steve did.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
But I'm very glad that Bruce came back to the band because we've gotten all these other albums. Plus, Blaze has went solo.
And he's done some good stuff as well with the solo. It's like
absolutely.
It's like the best of both worlds thing. I will counter your point, though, in regards to when Bruce went solo this, right? And he wrote better stuff than what Maiden was doing at the same time. But he had Adrian.
Well, he had Adrian
for the better stuff that he wrote. I should add.
I'll say this: like Balls to Picasso was the first real solo album because Tattooed was shite that happened while before No Prayer.
It's so bad.
It's funny. I listened to a podcast recently, and they were talking about whenever all this was going on, where Bruce did the song for Nightmare on Elm Street, and then they said, "Hey, do you have enough material for an album, for a solo album?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I've got an album's worth of material." He had nothing, but he told him that 'cause he was like, "I'll just BS my way." And what they said is he called Yannick up and he goes, "Hey, apparently the studio wants 10 more out. Apparently the studio wants an album of this shit." So
he's just looking for a payday.
Well, yeah, because it was such a different thing back then. But Balls to Picasso was a step in the heavier direction, and it's kind of a weird album. But there's some really good stuff on there. Skunkworks is a very different album. I really like Skunkworks a lot. Accident of Birth. He only called Adrian in to do guitar solos on that album. Okay. So, and I think Adrian co-wrote like 2 songs.
Right. But that's just like co-writing, like, I changed the solo, so give me a co-writing thing or something like that.
Yeah. And I believe I don't know how many co-writes Adrian has on Chemical Wedding, but then his last, not his last one because he just had one out. Yeah. But his second, Tyranny of Souls, is a really strong album too, and there's no Adrian. I just think that, but the big thing that he has is that one thing that's the hardest to duplicate. He has the voice of Iron Maiden.
Look, that's definitely part of the signature.
It's a huge part.
It's a bit like Steve's bass, which is very hard to replicate. But if you're not a bass player, then you're probably not really noticing it too strongly. Yeah, it's prevalent on certain songs and certain albums. Run to the Hills or something like that, for example, is obviously very heavily in Steve up front type of thing. But then, the bass can easily get lost in the mix on certain other tracks where guitar duties are taking over. So, but the vocals are always up front. And like you said, obviously Bruce is the biggest aspect in regards to Iron Maiden, the strongest aspect of the band. And being the iconic singer that he is, definitely helped.
Yeah, that's why so many of these bands, like a lead singer can go and kind of overtake a band and say, "Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tour this with this band. I'm going to tour the band now with no original members or something," because as long as people hear the voice, you can, for the most part, and you said this as well, you can duplicate. They can bring someone in that can play guitar solos like Dave and Adrian and Yannick. They can bring someone in that can drum mostly like Nico. They can bring someone that can mostly do what Steve does. It might not be perfect, but if that voice is the same, that's the biggest thing that's hardest. The voice is such a unique instrument, whereas every guitar has so many frets and so many strings. And
replicating voices, that's a bit different though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess, look, we've discussed these 3 albums. So we've got to come to the difficult conclusion of which one will obviously be erased, which one we would listen to forever, and which one we would see live. Steve, would you like to take it away for the choices that you're going to be making?
Well, I don't think anyone will be surprised with my first choice of which album would I erase.
Brave New World?
How'd you know? I figure I need more time.
Do you need more time to think about which one you're going to erase?
Yeah, 32 years hasn't been enough for me to realize that, Fear of the Dark is shite. So, mostly.
What is it your channel says? It's horse shite.
Yeah. Yeah, this is how I do it. I'll go.
Here we go.
I'll go, Fear of the Dark is a horseshit album. I haven't done that in a while. I've kind of taken it out of the podcast for a while, so that's an exclusive.
Oh, there we go. Everyone. Yeah. I guess people who are going over from the channel going, "Oh my god, he did it! He did the thing!"
Oh god. But yeah, Fear of the Dark is easily the album I would erase.
Okay.
Easily. And I gotta admit, as soon as we picked these three albums, it took me about 1 minute to look down and know what I was gonna do on all three of these. So
wow.
I was hoping that it would be a little tougher for me. But when you're a fan of a band, when you know what you like and what you don't like, and where you do a podcast, you talk so much about music, so many different ways. We've went over Iron Maiden songs and albums so many different ways that I look at it and it's like I can still talk about it, and I love talking about it, obviously, as you can tell. But yeah, Fear of the Dark is the one that would I would erase it even if I didn't have to. So
you could have just had one choice on there, and it's like, all right, what do you do? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I haven't even told you the options yet. Oh, sorry.
If you gave me 17 choices, that's probably the one I would erase.
Still going out the window. Bam.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Fear of the Dark, erased, gone from existence. Thank God for that, apparently.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank us later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, which album would I see live, and which album would I want to listen to forever?
It's a bit difficult, these last two, because, just sorry to interject here, but somewhere in time, like you said, the band was a little tired, and then Brave New World is a pretty damn amazing effort to come back to. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
but I only get to see the album played live once.
Yes, and never hear it again.
And never hear it again. So okay, this makes it pretty easy because of that.
Yeah, fair enough.
The album I would listen to forever is Brave New World. It's to me, it's a fantastic album. When I listen to it, there's two songs that I would say aren't at the top level, but they're still really good.
Okay. Which songs are those?
It would be The Mercenary.
Yeah.
And shoot, I'm trying to think of the other name.
The Fallen Angel or the Nomad?
Fallen Angel. Yeah, it's Fallen Angel. Fallen Angel and Mercenary. And I think both of those songs are really, really good.
Okay. So it's like the weakest tracks on the album, but they're still strong.
They're still strong tracks, yeah. So I mean, it's pretty rare that a band puts out an album where every song is a 10. Every song is perfect. Where you're like, how would I rank these songs? I have no idea.
That's true.
It's a small like a friend of mine from across the ditch from where you're at over in New Zealand told me. He says it's just by a whisker, it's just a whisker difference. It's so small, but they're just, there's definitely a noticeable step between those. But I love every song on that album.
Yeah, fair enough.
I could listen to that if I could just only listen to one album by Iron Maiden. That's the one. I mean, there's one other album, my number one album, obviously, that I would choose as well. That would have been tough if those two albums were on here.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, thank God.
Yeah, I was. I mean, like, who knows how things could have gone with that regard.
Yeah, you might have had to get a defibrillator out of here. So,
by the way, his number one album is Senjutsu, in case you're wondering.
It's not Senjutsu, but I do rank Senjutsu pretty high. I like Senjutsu. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Senjutsu.
Can't do it.
And so I guess that leaves me with the album I would hear live once and never hear it again, and that would be Somewhere in Time. I like Somewhere in Time. It was my first album.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bittersweet choice.
Yeah, it's
of that.
But you know what? I mean, there's multiple other albums I would choose over Somewhere in Time. If it would have been Somewhere in Time would have been the album I would have erased if I had to, if the other choice was my favorite album.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and thank God I don't have to erase it. So, but or only hear it live once and never hear it again. So,
you can live with that. And it's not a bad tour.
Yeah, I will be hearing a lot of that live, actually, in Australia later this year. So.
Oh, you coming down to Australia, are you?
I'm going to be going to Perth and 2 shows in Melbourne. So.
Oh, snap!
Yeah, it's a lot of people I know that I've met through the podcast are going to be there. So it's really cool, really, really cool. So my co-host Kirsty is in Perth, so going to see a show there with her. The guy who did the Somewhere Back in Time series, which is where we talk about where you heard The Stranger in a Strange Land, where he talked about the history behind the song.
Yep.
He lives in Melbourne, so I'm going to get to meet him in person as well. I'm really excited about that. And then there's a few, like my friend who I've so lovingly given the nickname Outback Mark, lives in Alice Springs, in the Outback.
That really is the Outback.
Yeah. So he's going to actually be there. My friend from New Zealand, James, is going to be there. I'm so excited to get to meet people that I've been talking to for years. And,
oh, God, you make me... you know what? I might even consider coming down to Melbourne just to buy a ticket to see Iron Maiden. To see all this crew.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be awesome, so...
It's good, though. That's the thing about Iron Maiden and their fans. Like, everyone just unites.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the music brings people together, so...
It definitely does. Except when you make a list like this, then it's going to divide the fans. Sorry, everyone who just, spitting chips.
This is what I say, even though we're saying all this, I mean, music, one thing I probably wasn't the first one to say it, but music is, it's art, and art is subjective. And for every person, well, I wouldn't say for every person that hates From Here to Eternity, there's a million more that love it, but some people are going to hear From Here to Eternity, and maybe that's the song that they first heard or saw on Headbangers Ball on MTV, and that they were like, holy crap, I love this.
Oh, no, you're right.
And then they found 100 more songs that were way better. Yes. But, I mean, I'm not to take away from that. I mean, that's why they make it, and I figure most people hate it, but but you know what? They can love it all they want. That's fine with me.
That's it. And if you love any of these albums, I mean, sorry, I should probably give my list as well before I say anything.
Yeah. What is your list?
I definitely would, be erasing Fear of the Dark for the obvious reasons. Somewhere in Time I'll be seeing live because Brave New World is a great album to listen to. Definitely on the same list for that. But yeah, look, if you have, Fear of the Dark is the album that you love by Iron Maiden. We can't take that away from you. We're just making up a game that we hopefully would have started a discussion. And that's all we want. Yeah, that's all we want. No hate, no nothing like that. Just a nice discussion about the band that we love. And
one thing is that people get bothered when you're talking negative about some music that they like.
Yes.
It's really a good thing because it shows that they have passion for the music.
Yeah. Yeah, when someone's coming up with a negative thing, you're going, all right, you got the passion behind you. I understand that.
Absolutely.
I'd get passionate about certain music. Hell, you would get passionate perhaps about Iron Maiden, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I do. On a regular basis.
Every day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, I think this has been an interesting little episode here. Uncle Steve, I should say, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Live Listener Race, the Iron Maiden themed episode, I should add as well. Steve,
Yeah,
it's been great to have you on here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
No worries. And tell us a bit about your podcast we should mention before we head on out as well.
Let's see. Okay, my podcast is called Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone, and we do something kind of the main what do you call it? Like a staple episode that we do a lot is Iron Maiden stories. That's actually the first way me and Chili met here. I mean, we chatted back and forth a little on Twitter, but actually speaking to one another, he came on my podcast and he did his Iron Maiden story. It's where people kind of go through their history with Iron Maiden and we just talk about it, whatever people like and don't like. Sometimes I skip things because they'll be like, "Oh, I don't like the Blaze albums," and I go, "Okay, well then we'll skip the Blaze albums. It doesn't matter to me. It's just all music conversation, which is fun."
Yeah.
We've got another series that's kind of consistent, but it takes a lot of work, so they're not as frequent as the Somewhere Back in Time, which is the other thing that kind of how we met, because you were commenting on a post about the most recent one, which was Stranger in a Strange Land, which it's an amazing story when you hear it.
It's incredible. The Great Northern Passage, that was it.
That was it, yeah. And there's so much history to it, and that episode had Andrew, who is from England but lives in Melbourne, and our friend from across the ditch, James, in New Zealand. And that was really cool. We've got about 12 of those. The Iron Maiden stories at this point, we've got over 60 of them.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a lot of them. And then a lot of times we just talk about Iron Maiden. We rank songs. Sometimes we talk about other bands. We'll do an album review of, say, someone like The Cult or someone like Megadeth.
What?
Or
you
someone
like The Cult? I've never heard you talk about The Cult on your podcast.
Yeah, as long as you didn't listen in January, you wouldn't even know it, would you?
Yeah, if I didn't listen to you from January up till now, I never would have heard that.
This is probably the first month in my life in January. I didn't listen to any other band in January. I tracked it on my phone. Wow. I listened, I think they have, let's see, 11 or 12 albums. I can't remember right now.
Yeah, something like that.
I listened to every album like on a loop over and over and over, and I had over 2,000 listens in January. Gosh. Yeah.
I thought you were about to say I didn't listen to The Cult for this month, and I'm like, oh, miracles have happened, everyone.
No, I haven't listened to them since January.
Oh my gosh.
I literally, from Dreamtime to Under the Midnight Sun, loop. It was like a loop. It was amazing.
Living and breathing the moment. Take it in, soak it all up.
Yeah.
The Cult.
But we've reviewed albums, Megadeth, Anthrax, AC/DC, Kiss, obviously Iron Maiden, The Cult, just so many bands, Alice Cooper, so many bands that I love, and I listened to a podcast today and they were just talking about, trying to get numbers and this and that, and they go, at a certain point we just decided, screw the numbers, we're going to talk about what we want to talk about, and so whoever wants to listen will listen, so be it. And
yeah,
to me that's the most important thing, is if you got to do what you want to do, and that's what we try to do on the podcast. I've obviously started it by myself, but since everything's been very organic, Matt, one of my main co-hosts, he's originally from Perth. He lives over here in the United States now. I met him through his Iron Maiden story. Kirsty, who lives in Perth now, she's from England. Met her through her Iron Maiden story. Those are my two main co-hosts. And then there's Andrew, who is my Somewhere Back in Time guy. And then a lot of people come along just here and there, and we'll do an episode with me every now and then. So it's a lot of fun, and we're I got to be political. I'm not on my podcast, so I won't be politically incorrect here. We're just all
go for it.
I could be okay. We're just a bunch of retards and idiots, dummies, whatever you want to call us. I'm the biggest one,
He's the leader. It's like the Jackass crew, just like over there talking about Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. I like to have a lot of fun. We joke. We have a lot of self-deprecating humor. We don't take ourselves too seriously. None of us have egos, Everyone's really cool, unless you piss us off, and then we're buttholes, I guess.
Yeah.
But we have a good time. We're always kind of busting each other's balls and chops, whatever, and it's a lot of fun. We like to laugh a lot, and if you like our personalities, then you'll love our podcast. If you don't, then you probably won't ever want to hear it again. So you'll be like, there's one I can skip.
And that's how I guess came across your channel a bit. It was like I would be listening to the Waffle Zone, and that's where all the humor comes into play. You're talking about certain aspects, and your co-hosts as well for various episodes. It feels so organic, and it's hard to find a podcast that just feels organic that's talking about music as well, unless you're listening to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm not organic.
Yeah, let me add that because if you look at my podcast currently, every week there's 2 episodes, and one of them is the waffle. Well, and it's usually 2 in one session. One of them is the Waffle Zone, but it's a definite start and finish, and then it's another start and finish. But the Waffle Zone is where we just talk about what we listen to, podcasts and music, and you try to introduce people to either a band you like or maybe a podcast you like. I like to, if you retweet my podcast or quote it, as we say, I like to read them out and have fun with people and the names and read funny comments and stuff like that. And it's just a we can waffle. That's why the waffle, we can talk about whatever we want. And we took that, actually, that was organic too, because Kirsty, I told you earlier how we had an episode where it was an hour of just going on. Kirsty one time told this guy, she goes, hey, you need to listen to this podcast. We just did an episode about Adrian Smith, something, blah, blah, blah. So the guy listens to it, and he comments on my post, and he goes, yeah, I tried to listen to this, but it was just a couple of guys waffling on for about 30 minutes, before, and they never talked about this. And so that was our obvious name for the Waffle Zone. But so if you listen to the main episode, you get the main episode. If you don't mind listening, if you want to listen to us just jack our jaws a bit and talk about whatever, you listen to the Waffle Zone. So you can skip it if you don't want to hear it, though. That was the main point. So.
Yeah. Look, there's a great thing in Spotify if you get to a part of the show where you can press the skip button, 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know if you do it for mine, you'll skip right through the entire episode for certain ones. But Uncle Steve here, he has some lengthy episodes, and they're always great fun to listen to. They're discussing obviously in the new music. That's just the Waffle Zone I should be adding, but. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So go over, make sure to check out his podcast because, it's a great show. A lot of angles to hit up and, of course, a lot of material to be looking over, especially if you love Iron Maiden. So, again, Uncle Steve, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Live Listen Erased, the Iron Maiden edition.
Indeed. Thank you.
Cheers. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music-related content because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.